My name is John Hecklinger. I am the co-CEO of Global Fund for Children. Um, and for those of you not familiar with Global Fund for Children, we've been around for 30 plus years now, and we've partnered with more than 1,300 community-based organizations all around the world, helping them deepen their impact in their communities and the lives of children and young people they serve, and to strengthen their capacity to catalyze social change. We think about our work as situating between two guiding stars, community-driven systems change with children and young people as leaders and change makers. And I'm really excited for you to hear from Tanya, Kimberly, Shazad, and Emmy, who are navigating this turning point in global development that we're all experiencing in different ways. And just to set a little context, it's been a little over 100 days since the U.S. Froze most of its foreign assistance budget, tens of billions of dollars, and which is on the extreme end, but other countries have been pulling back a bit from their assistance levels that they've traditionally had. And so we survey our grantee partners every year and ask them how they think we're doing. And this year we added a couple of questions to see just how affected our partners were. And out of 199 respondents, 45% said they had already been or expected to be directly affected, which is a little surprising to me, given that we are working with truly community-based organizations. Not all small and nascent, but many small and nascent. And in many cases, those partners didn't even realize that some of their funding was dependent on the US government in some way. Of course, this creates all kinds of difficulties. And even as many people and organizations around the world have not been particularly happy with the system of foreign assistance as it was, and have been trying to shape and change it to be more responsive, to be more locally led in its approaches and more inclusive, nobody wanted it to happen like this. So here we are with community-based organizations, as always, working through these issues, rising to the challenge as they've been rising to challenges all along. And this is another one of a particularly acute character. So today's question really revolves around, from the perspectives of Kimberly, Shazad, Emmy, and Tanya, what might it look like to move from an old way of doing things that seemed pretty transactional to something that's more trust-based, more transformational, that truly center community leadership? So I am just thrilled to present today's speakers. And I'd just like to give everyone a chance to talk briefly about your work and who you are and where you're coming from. And so I'll start with Kimberly Barrios, who is one of Global Fund for Children's Change Champions and also co-founder of a youth-led organization in Guatemala. So Kimberly, can you tell us a little bit more about your work?
Hola a todos, mi nombre es Kimberly Barrios de Guatemala, tengo 25 años y pues fui una persona que fue beneficiaria de cooperación internacional en diferentes espacios a través del voluntariado. Es así como a los 18 años comienzo con tener energías, sueños de poder hacer una organización liderada 100% por juventudes. Es así como formamos lo que es Jóvenes Artistas por la Justicia Social, HACS ONG, que es una organización de juventudes que está utilizando el arte como una herramienta para transformar realidades. Nosotros trabajamos entre pares con juventudes de todas las edades, desde los 18 hasta los 35 años, y estamos creando nuevas formas de impacto, aprendiendo tanto de todas las experiencias anteriores como transformando para algo más positivo en un futuro. Y hoy estamos acá porque nos gustaría mucho contar cómo hemos pasado de recibir fondos, digamos, de una cooperación internacional a cómo lo estamos afrontando hoy con nuevas miradas y nuevas esperanzas. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Kimberly. Appreciate the, that quick history and perspective. So let's move right along to Emmy from Fitch Uganda. Tell us a bit more about your work, Emmy.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, John, for hosting this webinar and these conversations, and for being a long-term partner for GFC in our work. It is so wonderful to be with you all. My name is Amy Zumblamai Okelo, just like John said, and I lead Fitch as Executive Director. Fitch means Foundation for Inclusive Community Help, based in Northern Uganda. Myself and a few colleagues gave birth to an idea of Fitch because we wanted to rewrite a story of what possible in the region where I was born and raised, a region that has endured civil war for over 2 decades with poverty and systematic negligence. Our mission is to build thriving, self-reliant communities by focusing on 3 program areas, that is education, livelihoods, and community development. We work primarily with the children, women, and families, supporting them to access quality learning, develop economic independence, and also strengthen the community as well where they live. I am here today because while aid has played a crucial role in social services like education, well-being, looking at the change in the funding space. I think I will be able to share my experience and what we see, but also the most important thing, we need to have a new kind of partnership, one where grassroots organizations aren't just implementers, but also a partner and a co-creator of an initiative that support the community. So I'm looking forward to having this conversation. Thank you so much, John.
Yeah, thank you, Emmy. Now I'd like to turn to Tanya Kassian, who's the director of the organization Fulcrum, which is the oldest LGBT rights organization in Ukraine. Tanya, can you tell us a bit more?
Yeah, one of the oldest, not
One
the
of the oldest.
Hi everyone. Yeah, indeed. I'm from Ukraine. My native city is Mariupol, which is in occupation now. But our team and my work focused in Kiev. But we work in all of the Ukraine except temporary occupied territories. So we have several priorities. One of is, as we are a human rights organization, so advocacy is our focus, and actually advocacy for civil partnerships. And thanks to our work with politicians, we have registered 2 bills and continue advocate for it. It's hard, especially in terms of the war, and especially with the Russian spread propaganda. The second priority is create an inclusive workplace in Ukraine, because we have increasing number of veterans, people with disabilities. We have the problem with age diversity. We need to engage as more people as we can to survive economically. So we teach business how to be inclusive, and it's another challenge, because at the moment Ukrainian business wants to talk about veterans and people with disability and veterans with disability, but not, for example, about LGBT, youth, and age diversity is one of the is not on the priority. Last year, we organized national survey on the characteristic that business protect, and age is was on the bottom. And the third part is work directly with the community. We work with LGBT, we work with youth, we work with youth from different vulnerable groups, as internally displaced, teens and young adults, LGBT youth, and Fulcrum is translated as a point of support. So our main idea is to be this support. We provide career consultations for free for people who lost jobs due to the war. We provide boxes on HIV testing and provide friendly doctor consultations, and we provide psychological support, and we believe that this will be one of the challenges in the future. It's the challenge now for Ukraine. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Tanya. Appreciate that overview. And let's go to Mohammed Shahzad Khan, who is the Executive Director of Chanan Development Association, a youth network in Pakistan. And as far as I can tell or have heard, the GFC partner most directly affected, by the recent, cuts in assistance. Shahzad, tell us a little bit more.
Thank you so much, John, and peace greetings, everyone from Pakistan. As John mentioned, we work in Pakistan through Chanan Development Association. The idea of Chanan Development Association is built on the resilience shown by the individuals, activists in their families, and then coming together to work towards their communities. This is how we started 20 years back in 2004 as a theater group. And over the period of the past 2 decades, we have been transformed from a very grassroots organization to a national organization, now supporting and providing platform to other grassroots youth organizations, community-based organizations, and especially organizations by the marginalized communities. Chanan Development Association is working for the social, political, and economic inclusion and empowerment of young people. And most importantly, a big part of our work is focused on strengthening a grassroots youth movement where the young organizations are able to access resources and also have an intergenerational dialogue with existing civil and political leadership so that the knowledge and are transferred, but at the same time, there's more collaboration amongst the people. As John mentioned, we lost almost 70% of our resources just because of the decision made by somebody very powerful in the West. And it's not the story of us that's the problem. It's shared by many organizations and individuals in Pakistan because the work that is actually being done, especially when it comes to rights, when it comes to advocacy, when it comes to marginalized populations, when it comes to minorities, all of this work is being impacted badly because this is the values that actually being supported by the long-lasting partner. But now it's again, the communities are on their own, and I'll tell you, and I'll look forward to tell you more about that, how resilient the communities are, even in this challenging situation, how resilient we are as an organization, and we have seen the community-based organizations coming up together and making towards a move towards a transformational partnership. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Shahzad. And just as a reminder, before we dive into the heart of the conversation, please feel free to use the Q&A to register any questions that we'll hope to get to at the end. And also we welcome what we hope are community-based organizations on the call today who would have questions about funding opportunities. We will share some resources about how GFC works, and then also some other resources that we can share. So let's go ahead and get into it. So we, everyone's trying, everyone in this very large, diverse community is trying to, understand, the direct effects, but also the kind of ripple effects of the changes in this system. So you're seeing, each of you are seeing this unfold in different ways, in your communities, your regions, in your team and your organizations. So same question for all of you. I'd love to hear about the challenges that you're witnessing in your communities, in your contexts, and what it looks like from where you're doing your work. So why don't we start with Tanya? Would you like to come in and share your perspective on the effects?
Yeah, sure. I think that all of you know that the main challenge for Ukraine is the war, and nobody sees how the end can be in the nearest future. And you have to understand that all Ukrainian activists and NGOs have to work under this pressure all the time, like every day to day, under psychological pressure, and the security is a big challenge because you never know when and where massive attack will be. Nevertheless, if you talk about the society, what we see now, what kind of challenges, as I said, the problem with mental health, it's still a little bit stigmatized. And what I see, like a survey was conducted in Ukraine in 2023 and 2024 to measure how war influenced the youth. And what we saw that with every year, the number of youth who needs access to free psychological support is increasing, and they started talking about it. And on the biggest challenges, they named depression, stress, anxiety due to the war. And I said that we work with specific vulnerable groups. We work, for example, with LGBT youth, and they feel double pressure because of the war, but also because of the acceptance, of desire to be accepted by the society, the parents, the schools, and etc. So mental health is a problem, and it will be the problem. This physical safety and the lack of actual social cohesion. What we see, I told you that now the veterans, military are our heroes, definitely, because they are our defenders. But at the same time, we see a little bit radicalization of the moods of Ukrainians because of the fatigue, because of the anxiety. And I think that actually after each war, there is a problem with polarization in the society, and this opportunity of being united that they got thanks to the war. I know that it sounds ridiculous, but we were so united in the beginning, and now we see that there is radicalization increases, and especially against vulnerable groups. For example, the number of hate crimes is increasing. In 2024, it was during first half year of 2024, the number of hate crimes were as it was in 2023 in general. What we see that we need to work on development inclusive policies, educating people what cohesion means, what inclusion means, and we need to support mental health of people. And of course, the cutting of American financing was hard because US supported a lot of projects in Ukraine, from repairment of infrastructures that suffered due to massive attacks to repairment of schools and hotlines on psychological support. And everything is closed now. And what I see as a challenge for NGO is a competition between NGOs in Ukraine for resources, and a competition for surviving as an NGO that can provide services for their communities.
Yeah, thanks, Tanya. So even at a critical moment in Ukraine, the loss of those resources has stung in a particularly acute way. And I think it's also in the context of a lot of work being done to strengthen civil society in Ukraine over the years that has led to Ukraine's resilience in the face of these attacks.
May I add, like, that government, like the state, they are going to support business, economics, etc. But human rights is never on the priority. And human rights is protected in Ukraine, I think, only thanks to international organizations and donors.
Thank you, Tanya. Why don't we go to Kimberly next? The same question. How does this look from where you are within your organization in Guatemala?
Bueno, gracias por la pregunta. Creo que es bastante interesante y me comenzaría posicionando la idea de que realmente nadie tiene la idea de en qué tanto lugar estaba la cooperación estadounidense, tanto en Guatemala como en otros países, porque muchas veces pensamos que estos cooperantes solo ayudaban a organizaciones de sociedad civil, pero la realidad es que no. La realidad es que también ayudaban al sector privado para fortalecer conocimientos y habilidades en empresas, pero también a agricultores, donándoles semillas, apoyándoles en todos los momentos con cambios climáticos, cuando se perdían, pues ahí sí que lo que ellos estaban produciendo. Entonces, realmente el impacto de la problemática que se viene con los recortes del financiamiento de Estados Unidos es bastante fuerte, pero el día de hoy todavía no lo hemos comenzado a ver, todavía no se ha posicionado en noticias, en redes sociales, porque acaba de ser, lleva días, llevan meses, y aunque todos nosotros, porque estamos en estos espacios de sociedad civil, en espacios sociales, tenemos estos conocimientos, pero los beneficiarios, las personas más vulnerables, aún no lo están sintiendo, porque hay muchas organizaciones que con los últimos recursos siguen trabajando. Pero para mí, a mediados de año, en julio, es un momento en donde se va a comenzar a ver realmente cuál va a ser el impacto de esto, porque ¿quiénes son los que van a terminar siendo más afectados? Son los grupos vulnerables, entre ellos pues están los pueblos indígenas, las mujeres, la comunidad LGBTQ+, y las juventudes. A mí en este momento me gustaría dar mi perspectiva desde las juventudes, porque es uno de los grupos que se va a ver más afectados en el pasar del tiempo. ¿Y esto por qué? Porque los cooperantes de Estados Unidos fueron uno de los primeros en posicionar la idea de comenzar a financiar organizaciones lideradas por jóvenes. También fueron quienes comenzaron a crear el empoderamiento y los liderazgos de las juventudes, y esto a través de muchos diferentes proyectos desde el sector de sociedad civil, desde el sector de emprendimiento, desde el sector de privado. Entonces, las juventudes, ahora, ¿qué pasa con ellos? Son estas personas que comienzan a ser vulnerables en muchos de los sentidos, tanto con crimen organizado como grupos criminales. Porque si no tienes oportunidad tú de poder hacer voluntariado, de obtener becas, de obtener pues la participación en un espacio social de acompañamiento, eres más vulnerable a caer en estos grupos organizados. Esto sería una. La segunda, pues Guatemala es un país de tránsito, de migración irregular de toda Centroamérica y de toda Suramérica, de Colombia, Venezuela. Muchas personas vienen a Guatemala para tratar de cruzar por México y llegar a Estados Unidos. Y es un poquito irónico que vengan y recorten recursos a proyectos sociales que lo que buscaban era detener esta migración irregular, o por lo menos ayudar a crear oportunidades en el país para que la migración fuera disminuyendo. Entonces, en este momento nos quedamos con la duda de, ¿están cortando todos los proyectos sociales? ¿Están afectando a las juventudes, a los que son las personas que posiblemente van a migrar el día de mañana? Y no se supone que están evitando que la migración irregular crezca. Entonces hay como esta pregunta de qué pasa con los fondos, si realmente lo que quieres es ayudar a la población a aumentar, digamos, su esperanza de vida en el territorio, de tener una vida más cómoda, de tener acceso a los recursos básicos y a que sean respetados sus derechos humanos. Pero con estos recortes tú estás impulsando a que las juventudes, a que los grupos vulnerables pues busquen una alternativa, y la alternativa muchas veces es la migración irregular. Y esto no va a pasar en la ciudad de Guatemala, esto va a pasar en los lugares más lejanos del país, en donde no hay electricidad, en donde no hay acceso a los servicios primarios. Entonces se van a ver vulnerables. En Guatemala pues es un país bastante conservador, entonces la comunidad LGBTQ+, las mujeres jóvenes y las juventudes como tal, viven en un estigma todos los días. ¿Y qué pasa con estos recortes? Que también están posicionando discursos de odio y que también están posicionando mucha desinformación sobre cooperación internacional, lo que nos afecta directamente como sociedad civil, como organizaciones, y que el día de mañana lo que vamos a ver es cómo esto también afecta a la democracia de nuestro país, porque estamos diciendo que como sociedad también estamos impulsando estas pues ideas erróneas, por así decirlas, que son que es un trabajo humanitario, es un trabajo social, es un trabajo por los derechos humanos, pero con toda la desinformación que hay en redes sociales, en noticias amarillistas y que muchas veces también un gobierno se suma, estamos viendo cómo están destruyendo sociedad civil, que es un pilar esencial de la democracia, que el día de mañana lo único que nos puede traer es comenzar a ver liderazgos más autoritarios en los gobiernos. Y esto va a posicionar ideas como lo que ya estamos viendo de una vulnerabilidad y como pues ya decía Tania, en los derechos humanos y la sociedad civil nunca será un pilar del gobierno, sino que muchas veces se enfocan en otras situaciones y recordemos que sociedad civil, que cooperación internacional, que las organizaciones existen porque el Estado no es garante de derechos humanos para la población. Entonces estamos viendo cómo las juventudes, cómo las poblaciones que siempre han sido desplazadas y que siempre han sufrido, siguen siendo los más afectados porque las personas que siempre han tenido pues una hegemonía sobre estas no son los afectados el día de mañana, pero yo estoy pues segura que hoy en día a veces pues decimos sí, se cortaron los fondos y se sigue con esta incertidumbre de qué va a pasar el día de mañana y muchos hablamos sobre una esperanza de un nuevo sistema de cooperación internacional, pero también vamos a comenzar a ver pues esta crisis en mucha población que pues el día de hoy no está en esta conversación porque no tiene acceso a internet o a electricidad. Entonces es bastante preocupante lo que nos espera, más que todo a los grupos vulnerables. Eso sería todo. Gracias.
Yeah, thanks, Kimberly. I think, for a lot of people in places like the US, all this can feel very abstract. But I think that issue that you shed the light on, that because immigration is a very present issue here in the US right now, and a contentious one. And so the unintended consequence of actually the erosion of the supports that had helped people stay and thrive where they are in their home communities might counterintuitively and have the unintended consequence of increasing those pressures, to migrate, even at a time when the U.S. policy is trying to prevent such things. So appreciate your perspective from Guatemala, and maybe we can go to Emmy from Uganda. How does the situation look from your perspective?
So thank you, John, once again. In Uganda, just like any other country on the African continent, but also from around the world, we are seeing the effects of a cut in both obvious and subtle ways. And the consequences are real, just like my colleagues are talking about here. For Uganda, approximately about 50% of Uganda national HIV/AIDS budget has historically come from USAID foreign assistance. With cuts, we are already seeing disruptions in access to treatment of treatment and prevention, especially in rural areas like ours, where we lived, where public health systems are overstretched. For example, talking about malaria, my own community is one of the most affected community in terms of malaria. I think it's the privilege is higher in the world. So you find that the aid is being cut. So how can people access some of these services, especially for young mothers and children under 5? So these remain persistent threats to the development, and without sustained support, our government struggle to maintain a consistent response to some of these issues. Just for example, providing services to marginalized community have led different kind of challenges within it. So these challenges cascade when funding disappears, so do job as well. So many of our peers in civil society organizations, especially community-based organizations, have been forced to scale down or even close up their organizations. So it means that whatever they're doing is completely stopped. So the people who were getting the services completely are not there. So just like recently I was walking around and I met one of the parents of the children that we work with in secondary schools. And the person said if Fitch stop moving and supporting girls, we shall see a lot of teenage pregnancies, just like we have been having. So if that happens, so it means that we are blocking the future of some generations. So, but this moment also clarifies something we have always known. Community-led organizations like Fitch and others in the community are not optional. We believe that these organizations are essential. We live where we served, and we understand that the daily realities on the community. So there are some quiet crises that community-based organizations challenge, and just like what we do as Fitch, you realize that many young people, many people who are left behind, especially children, if we don't provide them and if the head is cut and not resumed, we shall cast the generation ahead of us. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. And as I understand it, your organization hasn't had felt those direct impacts of the cuts as much as some other organizations may have, but you're seeing the ripple effects and championing solutions around for them. Is that true?
Yes, definitely. The effects of cuts from different spaces is still challenging us. We have never got funding from USA directly, and but we see how the effects is overwhelming our interventions.
Mm-hmm. Appreciate that. So, okay, Shahzad, tell us about the view from Pakistan and CDA.
Thank you, John. So a couple of things. First of all, it's important to mention that a significant portion of the development assistance to Pakistan was coming from the US. And it was something that was, going towards education, health, nutrition, especially the emergency relief after the floods in 2022, a lot of infrastructure development. But most importantly, it was also supporting social cohesion initiatives for countering violent extremism in some of the communities, and building and empowering marginalized populations. So all of those important work is being impacted, as I mentioned, that 70% of our funding is gone. At the same time, what's most concerning in this era is that that when community-led organizations, when the activists, especially the youth-led groups, works in the communities, they develop a long-lasting relationship with the communities themselves. The relationships are built on mutual trust. This is a moment when this global aid cut actually is damaging the trust that communities have been able to build upon the development workers, upon the youth workers, upon the civil society. So this is a very important damage because of this lack of trust. Now we see that even the funding, you find the alternative avenues or the resources comes up from somewhere else, but the trust that has been breached, it will take maybe years and years for people to be able to again trust the same organizations who have left them in the middle of the very important services that they've been receiving, not because it was something that they were enjoying as a privilege, but because it was their right to have access to those services. I've been seeing after this foreign aid assistance cut, the debate around two things that we have seen mostly. The first debate was around that what is essential. So essential services are not being impacted, and people are referring to essential services like health services, for example, or HIV/AIDS treatment or TB or malaria programs. But human rights is also essential for people who are working in the communities. Similarly, the future for the girls to go to get education is also essential. The employment opportunities for young population who is already unemployed, or skills that they were receiving is also essential. So this element of what is essential and what is not essential is again being dictated by the same West that has been dictating us what is right and what is wrong. So I think this whole narrative needs to put in place. And second discussion was about in this whole process was the funding cuts, that's actually impacting the organization to furlough their staff, that the offices are being closed, the resources are vanished. But at the same time, it's not only the resources that has gone. It's the opportunities that are lost. It's the hard work of the people from the past decades that have been, enabling the communities, empowering the communities, the rights that have been received, the advancements that has taken place. Or everything is gone. So not only the resources were gone, but at the same time, the opportunities are lost. The future for the next generation is lost. So this is a very, big impacts that we are seeing in the communities. At the same time, if you talk about the impacts in Pakistan for the work, because after the Pakistan is being devastatingly affected by the floods in 2022, the communities were actually receiving the services, and they are now left alone again. So this is a big crisis, the crisis that has already been, they have been into the crisis, and it's the marginalized communities that are again being most marginalized. The second thing, another important aspect is that maybe the participant in this room and those who are listening to this conversation may be aware that just last week, there was 2 nuclear states were on the verge of having a full-fledged war. And this is a big crisis. If that would have been escalated, thank God that the sense prevailed. But if it would have been escalated, the millions of people that are living in both part of the world, sides of the border, almost 1.75 billion people. So this could have been a disaster, which nobody would have been able to, to respond or to cater the needs of these people in such situations. So I think it's very important for the world to understand that when we talk about foreign assistance, it's of course it has to be taken from the perspective of the rights, but at the same time it also needs to put in place that whatever resources are coming in these resources, the ultimate beneficiaries, the ultimate communities that are most impacted needs to be prioritized. So one of the things that we have been able to do with the to address this devastating impact on our organization is that we worked amongst ourselves, the organizations. We know that the communities, we went to the communities even without the resources to be very transparent to them, and this was the most important thing, because to take them on board is the most important thing. And secondly, to build a solidarity amongst ourselves. We have seen a lot of youth groups that are working at the forefront, facing their death threats every day, putting their life at risk. So what we did, we built a movement of solidarity, bringing everyone together just to have conversations, because it must be interesting to say that the world is now seeing the funding cuts or the thing, but this is a very slippery slope. It always starts with the cut of the resources, but then it goes to the next steps, which is the culmination of the rights, culmination of freedom of expression and speech in the countries. We have experienced that in our countries, and the world, especially in the West, needs to now learn and understand that this is not something that is new, though the resources are lost for the first time, maybe in such a big scale. But curtailing the rights, curtailing the freedom of expression and assembly has been happening in the countries, and there are organizations, there are people resilient enough to come together in these challenging crisis situations, work together and develop their own solidarity so that they can move forward as an association. I think this is the most important thing, that we all need to work together and have more conversations, bring people like my friend Kimberly here, who sees the future, who look at their rights. So I think it's very much important that young people in Pakistan, which is almost 70% of the population, deserve their better future, where they have, rights, where they have education, where they have employment, and all the opportunities that were lost.
Yeah, thanks, Shahzad. And you touched on a lot of things. One of the things you touched on that was a pretty strong signal coming from our partner survey was, yes, the loss of the funding is problematic, but what that really means is that loss of trust in communities, because communities are not, really seeing it as, wait, we've been working together, and yes, we may have lost money, but how can we now trust you? And in some cases, making assumptions about what happened to that money that are incorrect, and that doesn't get rebuilt immediately. So we have a couple more questions to get to. It's been a really rich conversation, but I'm also getting a little conscious of time. But I think, kind of carrying on that theme of trust, and kind of recognizing that Hey, Tanya, are you okay with is a power cut, or are you
No, it's getting dark.
okay, good. So, there have been a lot of efforts to try to move kind of philanthropy and global development more towards trust-based ways of working, to really support true community leadership, to decolonize approaches. There are a lot of different ways to think about that. But sometimes it's hard for people to understand what that really is, what that looks like. So yeah, just on the quick side of the responses, question for all of you. In your view, what is sort of the most misunderstood aspect of community-led development as understood by international donors, other folks hearing about this, intrigued by this, but having a hard time understanding what it really looks like? And maybe we'll go in a different order. Emmy, could I start with you on that question?
Sure, John. Thank you. So on the same question, community-led development is how Fitch work every day. Just to let people understand from my perspective and from our perspective. So at Fitch, it means that people most affected are the ones shaping the solutions, discussing the challenges. Our team is from the same communities. So we make sure that our team who are running and working with the communities are from the same communities, so that at least they understand the context. So we don't arrive with answers or solutions to the interventions, but we sit together, we co-create, we listen together with the community. So that's what we are talking about, community-led interventions. So whether it's designing foundational learning programs that we run, which focus on literacy and numeracy, gender inclusive programming, running our women-led bakery, and then also microloan program, and also developing our very unique, we could say that, multipurpose community development center. The ideas and the leadership always come from the communities, because we understand that the community-led, we need to work together with the team. So one of the biggest misunderstanding is that I see assumption that local means small or less capable from different perspective, but local to us, it means this is the deepest and most lasting change happens. That's where the change happens. So we are not just delivering the programs, but we are supporting and nurturing the futures when you bring this kind of approach in the community. So lastly, we also think that we are not just doing this alone, but we need to share what we are learning together with other peers across Uganda, but also at the region, at the region of Africa. So the solutions, as a grassroots organization, we try to co-create and we try to learn together in practice with other similar organizations to champion certain aspect of programming. For example, we want to make sure that girls' education and children who are left and people who are left behind, we work together with other peer organizations. So I also want to acknowledge that in a moment of shrinking resources, it can feel like, actually, Tanya mentioned earlier, it seems that we are in competitions by peer organizations. But as Fitch, and we also encourage other peer organizations, we think we need to work together, co-create, so that even the donors can believe the change that we are driving together as a team.
Yeah, thanks, Emmy. The need for solidarity and learning, and if you're trying to engage in being super responsive to communities in an atmosphere of these kinds of pressures is really tricky. So thanks for giving voice to that. And maybe I can go to Kimberly. Yeah, what would you like people to understand about what community-led development really looks like?
Sí, gracias. Yo comparto mucho lo que ya nos comentaba Emi sobre el poder trabajar entre pares, el poder ir a las comunidades. A mí lo que me gustaría agregar es que muchas veces entre las propias personas que vivimos en un país nos cuesta un poco entendernos porque hay muchas diferencias entre nosotros. Entonces, a veces, pues esta idea de los cooperantes o de los donantes muy grandes
Ujú.
es lo que limita un poco la ejecución de los proyectos exitosos. Y esto porque les voy a poner un ejemplo imaginario. A veces venían personas expertas de Estados Unidos que solo hablaban inglés, iban a una comunidad de Guatemala en donde no se hablaba español, sino que se hablaba un idioma maya. Entonces pasaban de traducir de inglés a español y de español al idioma maya, en donde se dejaban muchos vacíos y las personas de las comunidades comenzaban a sentir pues esta presión, esta tensión de decir, bueno, viene una persona experta, vamos a dejar que esta persona experta lidere porque es la persona que están poniendo en este momento a trabajar. Pero esta persona desconocía la historia de Guatemala, desconocía la historia del territorio, desconocía cómo ha ido desarrollándose los diferentes territorios y cómo las comunidades han ido creciendo o cómo ellos mismos han ido solucionando sus problemas. Porque muchas veces las propias soluciones están entre las personas, entre los vecinos, entre las comunidades. Ellos saben qué realmente necesitan. Las juventudes de las comunidades más lejanas de Guatemala, ellos saben qué necesitan, ellos saben qué educación necesitan y cómo lo necesitan. ¿Por qué nosotros, siendo de ciudades, siendo de otros espacios, vamos a venir a decirles qué cambios necesitan si ellos son los que están viviendo el problema, si ellos son los que se sienten vulnerables todos los días? ¿Quiénes somos nosotros de otros lugares para decirles cómo solucionar el problema? Entonces, para mí, un desarrollo por las comunidades, pues en primer lugar, tiene que tener una pertinencia cultural y social. Tenemos que respetar sus prácticas, tenemos que aprender de ellos y tenemos que escucharles, porque muchas veces los diálogos, aunque todos decimos que queremos platicar, realmente los diálogos no son lineales, no son entre pares, sino que siempre es alguien habla, el otro escucha, o viceversa, y simplemente las personas que tienen más opiniones o que tienen más ideas no son las que realmente son escuchadas. Entonces es muy importante también ponernos a pensar, bueno, un desarrollo liderado por la comunidad suena muy bonito y suena bastante idealista, pero ¿realmente hemos vivido en un sistema de cooperación que ha respetado eso? ¿O ahorita es la oportunidad de poder llegar a un desarrollo liderado por comunidades? Porque muchas veces hasta las propias organizaciones de sociedad civil que se vuelven muy grandes comienzan a replicar malas prácticas. ¿Y cuáles son estas malas prácticas? El abuso de poder o los diálogos violentos hacia estas propias personas vulnerables en sus territorios. Y creo que esto también da pauta a que muchas nuevas organizaciones de sociedad civil estén buscando, digamos, activar o realizar acciones desde una nueva forma de ver el mundo. Y esto es lo que también ha motivado a muchas organizaciones de sociedad civil liderada por juventudes, porque así como en Guatemala están surgiendo muchas organizaciones de juventudes en todo el país, en todo el mundo, estamos viendo lo mismo. Y eso es algo que nos ha permitido notarlo a través de redes sociales, que es como este nuevo canal. También el crear los diálogos, que a veces pues hay muchas barreras, pero los diálogos son muy importantes porque si no nos entendemos, ¿cómo podemos plantear una solución hacia lo realmente que nos preocupa? Entonces, ahorita creo que es la oportunidad de pensar y decir, y les dejo esta pregunta, ¿realmente hemos vivido en un sistema de cooperación internacional liderado por la comunidad o liderado por expertos o liderado por quién? ¿Y hacia dónde vamos? ¿Realmente vamos hacia un cambio en todo el paradigma de cooperación internacional para lograr un desarrollo liderado por las comunidades? ¿Es este el momento o hacia dónde vamos? Entonces, realmente para mí es una pregunta también, porque al tener 5 años y comenzar desde los 18 y comenzar a ver cómo va cambiando el mundo, esa pregunta no la logro responder porque creo que me falta un poco de experiencia, pero hasta el momento mi conclusión es que todavía nos falta mucho para llegar a un desarrollo liderado por la comunidad. Eso sería. Gracias.
Mhm. Yeah, I think a lot of what you say, you know, it is truly, common sense that it's not always the way the system has acted. I mean, the importance of listening, the importance of humility, the importance of really building mutual trust, Those things are fundamental, but not always practiced. So yeah, and just still conscious of time, but I do want to get to Tanya and Shazad for your perspectives on what you want people to know about community-led development. Tanya, can I start with you?
Yeah, I would say that I think that there is acceptance perception of the NGOs sometimes as volunteers, and indeed we have volunteers, but also it's our full-time job because because we need to give all our time for these activities. And when we see, for example, that the project has duration 6 months, and we have to show outputs and outcomes in the end after 6 months, it's quite anxious, and just to keep my team, just to keep my work, just to keep providing the services to the community, we have to apply for a lot of grants to get something, because some grants provide like $5,000, 8, 10, 25, and we don't have institutional grant at all. So we don't have support, like a long-term support for 2 or 3 years to think about strategy, to think about future. We need to fundraise all the time. And sometimes I feel like this hamster in the circle. And it's quite nervous because I don't want to lose my team, and I don't want to lose the opportunity to help people. This is why sometimes we create coalitions with our organizations to be more competitive again. But it's really hard. And another problem, I think, is that donors have to listen to the needs of the community, because our goals should correspond to each other, but also you should listen what other community needs. For example, before we provided only one crisis psychological consultation for a person, and the psychologist told me, like, Tanya, it doesn't work because people open only after 3rd consultations. They need time to create this trust, and especially if you talk, for example, about LGBT youth, because they're afraid not to be accepted. Nevertheless, but we have friendly psychologists. So I think that's only actually GFC led us to increase this number to 5 consultation per person. So I would say that my recommendation is to have this feedback with grantees. And for example, when I saw that last year we had this huge number of participants of our application. We created application on how to protect your borders, protect yourself from bullying, discrimination from youth. And we thought that maybe 500 people will attend it, but we got more than 10,000. And a lot of teens started writing about how to protect myself from violence. And I wrote to the donor and I said, like, we have this request, we need to fill this gap. So Fulcrum always orients on the gaps, what we the kind of demands from the community side. And I would really recommend to the donor to listen to the community, to the grantees, to get this feedback, and and to be on time, because, for example, some donors said, we are reviewing our priorities, and we are like, but when will you share your goals? And they like, okay, in April. And then we got an answer now in July, and in July maybe we will not be existed. So we need to be faster. Yeah, this is another. I think the 3rd one. We live in a turbulent time, so we need to react faster.
I think that speaks to the community, what the community needs, especially in an environment like you're in, Tanya, will change a lot quickly. And to be truly community-led, you need flexibility. You need the confidence that support will be there for a while and will continue to be flexible so that you don't lose ground, you don't lose the team that's gained that trust. So Shazad, I think you may end up having the final word here. What do you want people around the world to know about
Yes.
community-led
Again,
development?
just two things. One, we need to understand that this is the right time that whatever resources are available, wherever they are available, they need to direct it to the community-led development. They need to direct it to the local organizations and grassroots organization. And the reason is that when such turbulence happens, the big corporations, the international corporations that were giving the biggest chunk of the resources are gone, are the first ones to gone. The communities that have been there are still there, fighting and resisting. So the communities are always going to be there. This is one of the argument that needs to understand by the international community, that this is why you need to spend resources to the local communities, because in a time of crisis, they're not going to lose, they're not going to leave. They're going to actually be more resilient and bring their own energies and effort and resources. So this is first thing. And second thing, we need to understand that the development is not done on a project to project or log firm to log firm basis. It's a long-term initiative, it's a long-term commitment, and it's based on the values of the people, and it's actually impacts the lives of the people. So that's why it's very much important that we support long-term initiatives, and flexible support, core support to the organizations needs to be there, because the resources, the projects, the outcomes and impacts numbers may look good on PowerPoint and some international forums. But at the end of the day, if we lose the key actors, the organizations who are actually serving, that have been able to build trust, like my friend Tanya sitting here, if in 2 months she's not going to be there, think of the opportunity loss, think of the loss of the future, that the younger generation was getting from her. So this is why it's important that long-term core flexible funding needs to be provided to the local organizations, so that they can, especially at this time of crisis, so that they can sustain themselves, they can sustain their key staff members who are continuing to provide services, and then maybe we can come and share the numbers that how many interventions are done and how many people have been reached. This is the secondary thing. Right now is to protect the people who are serving, and I think for this, international community needs to come together.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Shazad. And I'm just, we have run out of time, but if you all are willing to go another couple of minutes, maybe we could just do a very quick lightning round about what, and I think you've touched on this, but maybe just in a couple of lines, what does a more transformational funding partnership look like to you? Drawing on any examples that you've experienced, or if you haven't, then what you would like to experience in a future partnership that's built around what we've been talking about. Tanya, do you want to come in first?
Yeah, and the key word is partnership. And for me, partnerships means transparency. So for me, transparency is really important. And I know that I can rely on this partner. Or, for example, if they honestly tell me like next year we can't support you anymore. So let's find some solution. Yes, so transparency, flexibility, and adaptiveness. And I would say that now in this time we should think more about risk management. So now I will also look at the origin of the country of the donor, because of the political situation and how it can influence Ukraine and our priorities, because I understand that not every donor will work with organization that has focus, for example, also on LGBT.
Yeah. Interesting topic for a future webinar indeed. Yeah, Shazad.
Sorry, just one word, one line, basically, that for us, transformational leadership is all about being able to support in a crisis, just like GFC has been supporting us, especially when the big chunk was gone. But it's important that the international foundations need to step in at this moment, because they are the ones, who have not been into that stuff. We have seen, especially in countries which are most impacted, the international foundations needs to step in. There needs to be that transformational or the instrument that actually takes the transformation further. So yeah, just one thing.
Okay, thanks, Shazad. Kimberly, how about you? What does it look like? What do you want it to look like?
Yo creo que comparto lo que los compañeros decían y yo lo que agregaría es que fuera un trabajo con base en una estructura lineal, es decir, todos en la misma línea, ninguno arriba, ninguno abajo, que se pueda crear una comunicación directa, transparente, como Tania decía, y que en todo momento se esté informando de qué proceso va, no el dejar a última hora para decir, bueno, ya no tenemos fondos, nos vamos, adiós, sino realmente si la noticia la tenían hace 6 meses, ¿por qué no decirla hace 6 meses? ¿Por qué esperar hasta el último? Realmente tener esta línea de comunicación tan directa y tan lineal, sin nadie arriba, sin nadie abajo, te va a permitir poder tener hasta mejores resultados y tener realmente una transformación y reducir los problemas en los lugares en donde se busca. Yo creo que eso. Gracias.
Nicely put, Kimberly. Emmy, I think now you get the last word.
Yeah, definitely. I think for us, or for me, it means that our shared values and a clear understanding of the impact we are all working towards. And then also, I feel that it means taking time to understand the community context, asking good questions, and saying and being curious about what is happening. And then also it means it gives space basically to adapt because of the different context, a different shift in things that are happening in the community. And that is how I could quickly define it. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Emmy. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Shazad, and thank you, Kimberly, for joining us. You are all extraordinary leaders, working in extraordinary times in extraordinary ways. I'm honored to have been a small part of your stories, and thank you for sharing your stories, with this group of folks who are here in solidarity, here to learn, and here to support. So with that, thank you for everyone who attended, and hopefully we can all meet again in times when that are a little less turbulent in the future. Thank you very much.